Thank you, Brad. And good morning, everyone. Before we get started, please be aware that the video portion of this webinar is being recorded. Welcome to our monthly Industrial Security Learn at Lunch webinar series. I am Christine Beauregard, the Industrial Security Manager here at CDSC, and I'm going to be your host for today's webinar. Today's webinar, introducing the NISP Contract Classification System, NCCS, and sometimes referred to as the DD Form 254 database, is a topic that's very exciting to me. And it's exciting for a number of reasons, but mainly because even though the 254 is probably one of the most important forms of the NISP, it is also probably one of the most misunderstood forms, and it has been that way for the 30 years or so that I've been involved in this program. The NCCS is the first step in the right direction to making this a better process for all involved. Not only will it automate the process for completing the 254, but it's also going to serve as a repository of 254s issued through the DoD. So let's start by introducing you to the rest of today's broadcast team. And I've already introduced myself, so let's meet our presenters. We're fortunate to have with us today not one, but two people who have been very involved with the development of NCCS since its inception, Booker Bland and Lisa Gearhart, and they're both from our DSS Industrial Security Policy and Programs Office located in Quantico, Virginia. Booker will be presenting our webinar today, but this will be Booker's last webinar for us, as I recently found out that he's going to be leaving DSS at the end of next week. But don't fear, NCSS is being left in the very capable hands of Lisa Gearhart, who I'm confident will ensure that the NCCS continues to thrive and grow. With me in our webinar studio in downtown Ithaca, Maryland, home of the almost famous world famous G&M crab cake, we have one of our talented instructional system designers here at CDSE, Tina DeBarra Kennedy. She's going to be our webinar producer, working behind the scenes to make sure everything runs smoothly and that we remain on track and on time this morning. But before we get started, let me turn it over to Tina, who's going to provide you some basic webinar navigational instructions to make sure everyone can effectively participate today. Tina?
Thank you, Chris. So to begin with, we'll discuss how to enlarge your screen. The icon in the top right-hand corner allows you to enlarge your screen. You might want to do that during the demonstration portion of today's webinar. When you need to, in the bottom left-hand corner, there's a file share box. You're welcome to download the presentation at any time. Next to that, we have closed captioning. And then to the right of the presentation, we have a question and answer box. You're invited to enter questions throughout the presentation. If time permits at the end, Booker will get to the questions. If not, they will be posted on our CDSC's archive webinar page. And that concludes the navigation portion. Back to you, Chris.
Okay, thank you, Tina. We are ready to get the show on the road, so without further ado, it's my pleasure to introduce you to Mr. NCCS himself, Mr. Booker Bland. Booker?
Thank you. Welcome to this webinar, and just to lay some background and some foundational information, the Federal Acquisition Regulation at Section 4.43, Contractor Officers' Responsibilities, and Clause 52.204-2, Security Requirements, requires that classification guidance be provided when contract performance requires access to classified information. The DD Form 254 provides to the contractor or subcontractor the security requirements and classification guidance necessary to perform on a classified contract. Currently, the DD Form 254 is a manual, paper-driven contract process, and there is currently no central repository for the DD Form 254 that exists for DoD or the 30 federal agencies that have agreements with the Department of Defense for Industrial Security Services. This means that DoD and the 30 federal agencies cannot effectively monitor, manage, and oversee contracted security requirements. Untimely, inaccurate, duplicative, conflicting, and unverifiable receipt exists. There are also distribution challenges, weak, inconsistent, and unclear controls. All these things in totality puts classified information at risk. Next slide.
Okay, Booker, could I ask you to speak up just a bit, or put the microphone a little closer? We've had a couple comments that it's hard to hear. Thank you.
Okay. Is this better? Hopefully this is.
That sounds better. Yep. Thank you.
Okay. So to just go over just quickly what the goal of putting NCCS in place was, the goal was to establish, as we've spoken to briefly, a DD Form 254 repository while integrating this system within an established acquisition and procurement e-business suite. So NCCS will reside as one of 8 applications on a system known as Wide Area Workflow. It's one of 8 within the e-business suite. And that was an intentional to better integrate security and the acquisition and procurement communities. By doing so, we hope to improve the security controls and the quality of the data contained on the DD Form 254. Ultimately, in the end use, we hope to limit the use of DD Form 254 and ensure that all DD Form 254 data is maintained in one centralized and secure location and available for other approved purposes. NCCS provides notification capabilities for and between NCCS users. That includes the GCAs, or the government contracting activities, DSS, DOD, and cleared industry regarding the status of 254s and contract security classification and specification changes. NCCS minimizes contract security classification and specification errors through logic built into the process. It also improves the award process by ensuring that the information that is presented is as accurate as possible, and it supports the NISP facility clearance process and the foreign ownership, control, and influence oversight missions of the Department of Defense Security Service. Next slide, please. So getting started, and we'll go through the workstation configuration. There's a 9-step process in order to verify that your workstation is appropriately configured. I'll talk to it here, but I'll demonstrate it further on down. There is a SAR process. Again, I will show you where the SAR is located and how to initiate a SAR in order for you to gain access to the NCCS application. One of the most important pieces that you will need to know before gaining access to NCCS is your activity address code within the department. It's called your DODAC, your Department of Defense Activity Address Code. Within the rest of the federal enterprise, it's called your GSA AAC, or Activity Address Code. And for industry partners, it is your CAGE code. Next slide, please. Also, in order to get started and to operate effectively within NCCS, you will need to know your role within the current process. So NCCS is designed for up to a 3-person process, meaning someone will view the form, a second person will review the form, and then ultimately there'll be a certifying official. We built it that way to have the greatest flexibility. One person can, in fact, cover all roles for some of the smaller entities, or if your reviewer is geographically separated from you, then you'll have the ability to send it off to have it reviewed electronically and returned back to the system itself. There are 2 roles currently right now that are restricted to DSS, and that is our NISP oversight role and our FCL request reviewer. Built within NCCS is the capability for you to request an FCL for an entity that is currently unclear or undercleared in order to perform on a contract. Next slide, please. So I spoke to some capability, just so that you are aware. NCCS is at IOC. It deployed 8 June 2015, which means we have some basic fundamental functions in place. We have a basic system with a basic workflow. We're currently integrated with SAM, or the System for Award Management, for CAGE code verification and validation. Also, one of the interface that we have in place is a rudimentary interface with ISFD, or the Industrial Security Facility Database, and that is to ensure that the appropriate CSO, Cognitive Security Office, is assigned. So where we're able to apply logic, we've put logic into the system where some basic decisions will be made for you, and you'll be governed or guided towards other basic systems of established processes. Next slide, please. So we're going to go into a quick demonstration of the system, and we're going to go from there. It's going to take a few seconds for the interface to come up. So in the meantime, just so what you see or what you have before you is the basic splash page or the front page of wide area flow. You'll see the privacy statement along with the warning, your traditional banners that you'll see on most information systems. Once you accept it, you'll get to the wide area workflow e-business suite. Right now we're in the development or the environment, and this is identical to the deployed environment with the exception of the information that's entered in this environment is considered, it will not impact live applications. So what you'll notice across the bottom is NCCS is one of 8 in the live system. It's one of 9 in this particular application because we're testing another application called Contract Closeout. So it's one of 8. All these 8 are interrelated or intertwined one with another, so which is why we're in this environment versus the live environment, because any information that's placed within NCCS will auto-populate across the enterprise so that we're not putting in notional data that will impact live data. We're going to do the demonstration in this environment. What I'll also bring your attention to across the top is the Help and Training tab. Pressing the Help and Training tab radio will get you to the new user or the machine setup, which I spoke to earlier. Behind the machine setup are, in fact, the 9 steps that you go through to ensure that your workstation is properly configured to operate within the wide area workflow environment. What we've come to experience is that the greatest error rate is in step 4 and step 5 with the DoD and step 5 with the Java runtime environment. Those are particularly important for soft certificate and CAC authentication purposes. So ensure that as you configure your workstation that 4 and 5 are in fact complete. There is web-based training available for the NCCS application, but in the interest of time, I'll go back and again, the register button is available for initiating the SAR, and it's just a matter of, again, knowing what type of user you are, whether you're the government. In other words, you fill out the 254 on behalf of yourself. You are the GCA. You can be a government support contractor, and you're filling out the 254 on behalf of the government. And what our traditional industry partners are vendors. And as a vendor, you're basically filling out the 254 for either yourself or your sub or tiered contractor on behalf of the contracting entity itself, not the government. You're doing it on behalf of your company. I just want to bring to you that this is a role-based, privilege-based system. So even as I depress the vendor, you will notice that several of the applications that are inherently government functions disappeared, and these are the applications that are available to the vendor contracting population. As we pop back as a government user, you'll see the full suite of available applications. So I'm going to log in right now and walk you through just a basic demonstration of the system functionality. So when you log into the NCCS suite, actually this is still the wide area workflow e-business suite. We haven't gone directly into the NCCS module itself. You'll see the system messages, and the system messages speak to the health of the entire suite. There'll be a similar system message splash page within the NCCS application, and that system messages will speak to the health of NCCS. Again, the web-based training module is also available, that if you've gone this far and you still would like some additional training, that will be made available to you. As a user, you'll have the ability to see your profile, make changes to your profile, add roles. Because we're using a single SAR, the SAR that you've used for NCCS will also be the same SAR if you wanted to access additional applications within the wide area workflow e-business suite. It's just a matter of selecting the roles within the application that you would like to apply for. A new SAR would not be required. So it's single SAR, multiple application use. We're going to go into NCCS now, just so you can have a base layout of the system will be. Okay, for whatever reason it decided to hang up. We went back out and we come back in and it's working just fine. So what you'll see are the windows of the information that many of the user community requested that we track or have available to you on your home page. Your unprocessed documents are basically documents that have been placed into the system, and it gives you a standing count of how long they've remained in play, being unprocessed in some state or form. Now, there are various stages of being processed, whether it's being submitted, it was rejected, it was received. It gives you an overall look. It shows the initial 5, but you can see everything that's in your current queue, received, rejected, again, some of the statuses that I referred to. That's available to you on your home page. Period of performance was another important piece of information that we were asked to track, and that's currently not available on the paper form. So as the contract approaches termination or ending point at 120 days out, you will start receiving notifications here in your inbox, as well as email notifications. You'll get a notification at 120 days, at 90 days, 60, all the way down to 7, which you'll start to receive daily notifications, and you'll receive them up until the time the period of performance ends. And it's the hope in doing that is to, one, alert you that some action should be taken or needs to be taken as you approach the end of the period of performance. For cage codes, we're asked to track any changes to the cage code of a contract that you are currently have active on one of your contracts. So if there's any changes that will impact performance, and changes meaning changes to the FCL facility clearance, whether it will have some impact, adverse or otherwise, if there was any change to it, you'll receive a notification in that location. The recently updated, it's kind of self-explanatory. It lets you know, again, the working documents, and that's your most active file right there. My drafts are documents that you started, you saved, which you haven't taken final action on. That would be synonymous to your inbox. The message I spoke to earlier simply shows you anything that will impact the health of NCCS. Once you're on this side of the splash screen, the system messages impact NCCS and no other application. The security and contracting policies, those that are for your use, for your reference. I'm logged in currently as a government entity, so I'll have the ability to create a prime contract, to create a subcontract 254, prime contract 254, a subcontract 254, or a facility clearance request. The system allows you to build a facility clearance request as a standalone process or as integrated within the 254 development. I've also logged on with a profile that has multiple roles. So under this profile, I currently have the role as an originator, as a certified, and as a reviewer. I've also have under this role the facility branch officer reviewer. So if there was an FCL package that was submitted via NCCS, it will automatically be routed towards my box. So for the sake of this demonstration, I'm going to go through just the functionality to create a prime form 254. It's a lot of drop downs, again, to make this as error proof as possible. Where information can be pre-populated, it's pre-populated for you. where information can be made available to you by a series of drop-down screens. The information is made available to you. I'll select one of the DSS DODACs that we have available to me under my profile. This will be for a prime contract. This will be an original. Follow on. Performance location. This is synonymous to the block 8B of the current paper form, so I'll enter a case code in here. And what this system will do for you is that it will go out and query SAM and query FD and bring back, for some reason I'm having some latency issues here. While it's thinking about wants to bring back the case code and the ISFD data, we're going to continue to talk through it. And what it's doing now is going to go out and it's going to query SAM, and it's going to look for the case code to bring that information available to the front. And then it's also going to look for the cognizant security officer or the DSS officer responsible for oversight. Once the user verifies that this is in fact who you intended the contract to go to, it's just a matter of hitting OK. The information will be resident in the back of the screen, though not visible to you, so that if you decide at a later date to print the form out, it will print out as your traditional DD form paper, DD form 254. The contract numbers, again, for this demonstration and for time purposes, I'll go use a contract that was previously used. I'm going to intentionally start injecting some mistakes into it so that we can demonstrate some additional capability that will be validated for you as you do the system on your own. Again, the prime code contract location number 6B on the traditional form. The same process, verify this is in fact who you'd like to assign it to. Yes, contract type, we'll go with a firm fixed price. And DoD FAR contracts have very specific rules, as in 13 positions or 13 characters. And so one of the rule sets that we're automatically doing from the onset is validating the prime contract number. That you know that the contract number is too many numbers in length. However, for a non-DoD FAR contract, which are the rest of the population outside of DoD, the rules are relaxed and will allow you to put in a contract number that exceeds 13 positions. So for this demonstration, I'll continue with that. The facility clearance required, again, traditional standard practice, secret. If you're ever confused or would like to have additional guidance on what information is requested, it's just a mouse over and it lets you know that the classification level shown in 1B cannot be higher than the level specified in 1A. So in other words, your safeguarding can never exceed your facility clearance requirements. So those are some basic, again, rule sets to enhance the integrity of the data of the form, but also to provide some additional guidance for those users that may not be as savvy in industrial security as other users. We'll go through this period of performance. And what this system will also do is reach out to another application known as the EDA, or Electronic Document Access. So if this contract existed as a DoD FAR contract in that application, it would have pre-populated the period of performance for you. But because it didn't, and I manipulated that date, I have to go on and put a period of performance date. Again, it will track it within the background. Another function or place where we've seen errors or inaccurate data, or data that's not as accurate as it possibly could have been, is in section 10 and section 11 of the form itself. So there is some logic built into the process. Yes, no radios, but for every yes, it will automatically pre-populate some text in blocks that give you the ability to add additions to, in addition to what's going to be pre-populated. So for restricted data, it will automatically inform the person or the recipient of this that restricted data, release of restricted data is not releasable to contract employees that have not received a final clearance. And that's one of those things that someone that's more savvy than others would automatically know. But probably the most important piece of that written concurrence of the GCA is required prior to subcontracting. So this guarantees that there is no, it takes out some of the wiggle room as far as errors by incorporating some basic logic within the form itself. So for the interest of time, I'll go through this relatively quickly, and we'll go ahead and submit the form. And like I said, the form goes through a validation that's based upon some established rule sets that have been agreed upon by the NISP community and the NISP stakeholders. Block 13 is, I guess, the catch-all block, and that's where you have the opportunity to, you can either fat finger your security guidance in there, or you can cut and paste it directly in there, or you can attach this to the form as an attachment, as a Microsoft-based attachment. The reviewer block at block 16 is optional, again, for the agencies or organizations that have a two-person process. You can just use the originator and the certifying official role. For people that institute a three-person process, then you can use the originator. Once you've entered a location with the reviewer block, that role is no longer optional. It's to become a required role. The reviewer has to take a step in order for it to move on throughout the process. On the distribution, again, within this application, you can guarantee receipt just by a matter of checking the contractor, CSO, and others as necessary. It will accept email addresses. And submitting, I intentionally put some few things in there, just to let you know that there is logic being applied to the form at points throughout where the data can be validated through authoritative sources. That information is also being tracked and checked, and it'll let you know exactly what information is required or what was omitted. Submitting. And what you see right there is a statement that lets you know that the current FCL that's on record, that's on file, is either insufficient is either absent or insufficient to meet the requirements. And at this point, this system will automatically kick you into a facility clearance request. And I'm not going to demonstrate that process. This is as far as I wanted to take the demonstration, but it's very similar for the facility clearance request portion of it. It's a pre-population where the information can be pre-populated, information is validated where it can be validated, and it's just a matter of inputting the information in the appropriate blocks so that the efficiency of the system is there, the data integrity of the system is there, and we believe that it will enhance the contract awarding process. Christine, back to you.
Okay, thank you, Booker, very much. I really do appreciate the opportunity to take a look at the form and how we might be involved, or the system, and how we all might be involved. We have a few questions that come in, but we're running a little short on time. So I guess if I'll just maybe try to squeeze one or two in there before we close this out. And I guess the first one maybe is that that came in, Booker, is there a link for the WAFA on the DSS website, or how would people get to the NCCS to use it?
Well, right now there is a link that you can log in either directly to Wide Area Workflow, and that's at https /wide area wawf.ev.mil. We will soon have that link posted to the DSS website, and the plan is to also ensure that that link is made available on the webinar, this webinar's archive page, so that you can always reference it and go back to it. But right now, the link is not currently on the DSS, but it will be added momentarily so that it will redirect you from there to the Wide Area Workflow eBusiness Suite homepage.
And the other one that I see here that a lot of people are interested in is it available to use now, or is there a mandatory date that it has to be used by?
Well, the application is available to you, so we have entered IOC, and that happened back in June, and it is available with basic functionality, rudimentary controls, basic workflow. And the interface with SAM is up and available, the interface with ISFD. So if for nothing else, using it for the SAM application piece of it, and the interface with ISFD, which will automatically regarding a mandatory use date. Our mandatory use date has not been established at this time, so this system and the traditional paper form will coexist for a near term until that mandatory use date is in fact put in place.
Okay. We have quite a few others, and I don't think we'll have time to answer those today, but if you have a question and we haven't answered it, or you still have one in your mind that you'd like to get answered, put it in the Q&A box. We'll collect all of those, and then we'll work with Booker to get those answered, and they will be on our archive webinar page within the next couple weeks. So thank you for your questions and your interest. Again, Booker, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and your expertise with us today. We wish you all the best in your new position, and we're going to miss you here at DSS. I'd also like to give a special thanks to all of you for taking your time today to attend the webinar. These webinars are really a great training opportunity for you, and we're so glad you continue to take advantage of them. Before we conclude today's presentation, we hope you take a minute to participate in our survey. Your feedback is very helpful to us and is greatly appreciated. It helps us to continue to provide topics that are of our interest to you and that will help you do your job better. So make sure that you share those in the survey as well. When the webinar is closed, the survey link should appear on your screen. And the last thing we'll leave you with is our point of contact information for myself and for Booker and Lisa. Don't forget to join us for our industrial security webinars in fiscal year 16. We're still finalizing our schedule, so keep checking our webinar website for topics and registration for information. That about does it for us today. Remember, don't ever miss an opportunity to learn at lunch. Thanks for spending a part of your day with us. Enjoy what's left, and we'll see y'all soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you for your participation on today's conference call. At this time, all parties may disconnect.